what I really love is empowering and educating other women how to achieve the success they desire on their terms. I am here to show them it's possible to have both. As a mom, you can have both. We just have to be a little bit more strategic in how we go about it based off of the season of life that we're in.
Welcome to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast, where you will learn how to remix your mompreneur life so that you can win at work without losing yourself in the process. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business and elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl and hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. Let's do this. Hey friends, you are going to love today's episode. My Turquoise Talk guest is Amy Traugh. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a business coach, the founder and CEO of the Moms on a Mission community, and the host of the Motivated CEO podcast. She has made it her mission to change the narrative that you have to choose between running a successful business and being a thriving mom. Amen. She helps business owners gain the clarity, consistency, and confidence to generate the income they want so that they can create the impact they desire without sacrificing their two most valuable assets, time and energy. She does this by developing custom strategies for her clients using her signature CEO framework. You're going to love this episode. Can't wait for you to dive in. So let's do this. Welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. I'm your host, Martine Williams, your CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And today we have another amazing Turquoise Talk guest, Amy Traugh. I said it right, didn't I?
You sure did.
And I am super excited to have her on the show. We are so in alignment in the things that we talk about, that we're passionate about, to serve female entrepreneurs, those that are trying to be both. And we were talking about that before we started the recording, like both a successful, confident mom, but also a successful, confident entrepreneur. And so I'm really excited to have you on the show. I appreciate your time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
Yes. So tell us just a little bit about you, your family, and how you, became an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I am definitely one of those accidental entrepreneurs. I'm a mama of two, and I thought I had everything figured out in life. I was always going through checking all the boxes. I was like that like hyper like perfectionist person growing up, like, oh, get straight A's, go to college, get married, have the kids, have the house, have the cars. On paper, I had everything. Like looking from the outside, it was like, okay, I checked all the boxes that society deemed I had to check to be successful.
Yeah.
But the year 2020 happened. And during that year, life changed in
for everyone.
So many ways.
For everyone.
Right? Exactly. I had worked in healthcare for 16 years. I worked outpatient physical therapy. I worked orthopedics. So I was always working with patients recovering from like total knee replacements and ACL surgeries and all of these things. And, I didn't hate it, but I was working 40 hours a week in a position where like, I didn't love it either.
Yeah.
Like I would never see my kids. I would work these like crazy 12-hour shifts, but that's what I thought that I needed to do in order to be successful. Like the money was great. So it was like, I have this degree, I'm doing the thing. So I'd be crazy to leave. Like I should be grateful. You get that guilt that surrounds you. Like,
so
I
real.
can't do anything else because I paid a whole lot of money for this. I invested so much time. Like,
I
should be grateful that I have a job.
Yeah.
Well, during the pandemic, the schools shut down, right?
Right.
So suddenly I had a kindergartner and a preschooler. I'm like, oh boy, what do we do? Because at that point, nobody knew like what was going on. It's like, we can't have grandma watch them because we might get grandma sick and all of these things. Luckily, I had the opportunity to take a furlough. I volunteered for it, and that was the best decision I ever made because for the first time in my life, I was able to stop.
Yeah.
I was able to stop the hustle of every day, go, go, go.
Yeah.
And just like sit and really like dive inwards and go, do I really want this? Do I really love this? There's more to life than checking boxes.
Yeah.
There's more to life than all of these bright, shiny objects. So I still remember that spring was gorgeous. And I'm sitting there. My kids are playing. We're outside and I'm sitting there watching them. I'm going, oh my gosh, like life hit me like a ton of bricks. I am missing this. I cannot buy back this time. Literally, like, this time is going to pass, like, regardless of what I'm doing, how hard I'm hustling. What am I doing?
Yeah.
And so I had always had it on my heart to start my own business. I just never, working 40 hours a week, having young kids. I'm like, I don't have the time for that. So I finally had this time that I started exploring it. And I took a leap of faith and just did the darn thing. And I learned and it grew. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually working.
Yeah.
But I was willing to reach out and say, you know what? Like, I have a healthcare degree. I don't know what I'm doing from a business aspect with it. So I aligned myself with people that could guide me, people that I knew that were where I wanted to be. And I asked for help, which is something it's hard for me to do. It's hard for a lot of us to do, especially if you're like that type A person and you love control, like asking for help. It's like, oh gosh, is this like, a sign of weakness?
Yeah.
So that first business, which was a residential home organizing business, it grew because let me tell you, if you're going to start a business during a pandemic, an organizing business is the way to go because we were all stuck in our homes. We were all staring at all of this stuff.
Right.
And we realized like, what are we doing? Why are we holding on to all this stuff?
Yeah.
So it grew and I'm going, okay, this is kind of crazy. I'm networking, I'm getting out in the community, doing different things. And I started to get told over and over, things like, oh, you have to choose. If you really want this to be like sustainable, you have to choose. You can't like be an awesome mom and have a thriving business. You have to like decide. You just really have to compartmentalize. And I'm going, do you? Because I felt like my kids made me a better business owner. And I was a better business owner because of my kids. Because let's face it, as moms, we have those superpowers, like strategic planning. That is our job. That is every single day of our lives. Negotiation skills and sales skills. Like try getting your 3-year-old to put pants on certain days. Oh my goodness. We have this inherent skill set within us. Just by the fact that we're being a mom, we have to show up as a leader for our families every single day. So I built my own table just on a whim. I started a Facebook group to connect with people. I'm like, you know what? Like these events I'm going to are not the right table for me to sit at. So I'm going to build my own. And so what started as a Facebook group has grown and grown to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't have the time now to devote to both. What I really love is empowering and educating other women how to achieve the success they desire on their terms.
Yeah.
I am here to show them it's possible to have both. As a mom, you can have both. We just have to be a little bit more strategic in how we go about it based off of the season of life that we're in.
Yeah.
So it's been a crazy ride. I still look some days and go, wow, what just happened?
Yeah.
But I really feel like my journey has led me to exactly where I'm meant to be because now I get to do what I did my whole career in outpatient therapy. It's empowering and educating.
Right.
Now I'm just doing it with a different skill set and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so awesome. There's so much packed into that story that I hope the listeners really kind of download just starting like, there's so many stories that are coming out of that season where we were all forced to slow down. There was really no choice. Like we were forced to sit in our homes and think about our lives and reflect on our lives. And, for some people it is starting a new business or maybe it's a career shift, but it's just being open to those possibilities that it is a both and not an either or when it comes to being a mom and an entrepreneur. And that little tug that where you're feeling that someone's listening right now that you're feeling, that's there for a reason. Like trust that tug. And what you said about just, you didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know what was going to come next. You didn't know, like, and you kind of started to figure out that some of these tables that you were sitting at weren't the right table. So you just made your own table, like messy and imperfect and not knowing where it was going to go, but you just took those steps. And we talk about that a lot on this podcast, because I know for myself, like, the starting point sometimes is the hardest point, right? Is taking that first step, or for some of you and people that know my story, it was a huge leap of faith to leave my successful career in direct selling for 16 years into building out my coaching and speaking business. And it's not always easy, but when you have that feeling, like, trust that feeling, there's something more, there's another assignment for you, there's something more you can do. But I love what you said at the end about, your purpose really hasn't changed. And one of the guests I had on the show early on in the year, Jade Simmons, she talks about, your purpose is not what you do, it's what happens in others when you do what you do. And it comes in different vehicles, right? So when you were in the healthcare industry, you were empowering and teaching there. And now you're using those same things, those same purpose-driven qualities that you have to empower moms and to empower women in business. And so I think that's just a really good point. So no matter where you are in careers, and maybe you are an entrepreneur right now and you're feeling like there needs to be a shift or a pivot in what you're doing and how you're doing it, like, trust that purpose that's there, and you're just going to be moving it into different vehicles and different assignments.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Because it's hard. Mm-hmm. It is hard to trust in it, especially when people around you are doubting you, are questioning what you're doing, because that voice inside, it's there to keep you safe. Our analytical brain will kick in and go, oh, wait a minute. And those around you tend to amplify it. I mean, my mom, bless her heart, I love her dearly, but she still does not understand it. She goes, I still don't understand why you went to school all that time, worked all those years, and now are you sure you're okay? I'm like, Mom, I'm doing awesome. Like, I'm doing just fine. Now I get to do what I'm so truly passionate about. Make such a bigger impact for so many people. And what I'm always telling people, I'm no different than you.
Right.
I am a mom from Ohio. I just had a dream on my heart, and I did it scared. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I took that first step. And for me, I was always one of those people that thought that, like, confidence was something like you were born with, or, you just had it or you didn't. But when I've really realized is confidence is nothing more than having the courage to start before you feel ready. Because if I waited until I felt ready, I'd still be waiting, especially like being a perfectionist, being that type A, like, nope, I'm checking boxes, I'm going through life doing what I should do. But it's just doing it messy, doing it imperfect, just getting started. Because that's where we learn. That's where we grow. That's how we evolve. I mean, look at our kids. When they're first learning how to walk, they fall down over and over and over, but they don't fall down once and go, I'm done. It's the same thing with entrepreneurs. What can you learn? How can you adjust? How can you adapt? Just keep getting up. That's not what matters, is how many times you fall down. It's that you keep getting up.
Yeah. And realizing that ready is a decision, not a feeling.
Absolutely.
You can 100%. Decide today to be ready and to stay ready for the opportunities that are going to come your way. And even though you may not have all the answers, like when you were just talking about the kid, I started thinking about, they're not in their own minds thinking, I have to know exactly how to take one foot in front of the other before they take that first step. They're just like, here we go. Right. And they fall and they get up, and we would never as parents expect them to know how to do all those things. So why are we expecting ourselves to know how to do everything perfectly before we take that first step? So for your visual people out there, I think that's a really good thing to kind of hold on to when you think about your parenting and what you're expecting of your kids. Do you have those same expectations of yourself? Like, where are you off on your expectations? I find with a lot of my clients, that's a big problem, is that they have this high expectation, but they're in a season right now where they're sleepless nights because they have babies. My kids are older now and I have a lot more time, but a lot more time doesn't mean I'm going to be more productive either if I'm not, strategic with that time. But I just remember, thinking, gosh, I wish I could have just so much more time. My fellow peers that had big chunks of time and they weren't in nooks and crannies of nap times and diaper changes and all of those things that I was at that time, just really looking up to that. And so I love this idea that you talk about really designing your business around your life. And I think that's a really important message for women to hear, because they could be having that tug, but they're still trying to figure out in their head, how does that even going to work?
Yeah.
I'm changing diapers. I'm trying to do this. I'm still maybe working my full-time career, yet I have this passion that I know I'm supposed to work through and bring to fruition. So how would you share with them how to do that? What are some real-time strategies for that?
Yeah, absolutely. First step is you have to have massive clarity. What do you want this business to look like? What does success look like to you? Because let's face it, this is such a noisy world.
Yeah.
It is so easy to go down the comparison hole, just like we do it as moms all the time when we're comparing ourselves with other moms.
Yeah.
But just like you said, what season of life are you in? Realistically, how much time are you able to devote to this? How much energy? And whatever your answer is, that's perfect for you because you will grow at the perfect pace for you. When you're comparing yourself with a mom that has college kids, it's not a fair comparison when you have, like you said, that infant at home, you're sleep deprived.
Right.
And that's okay. So step one is just really getting that massive clarity as to what do you want? What do you want every day to look like? How do you want to feel? How do you want to be showing up? How do you want to be running your business? That's where we give so much power away is we're trying to do what everybody else is doing. But when you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're going to blend in with the noise. Showing up as you, as your unfiltered self, taking a stand for something. That's what makes you stand out. And that's where doing the inner work really comes into play. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and be misunderstood by some people because you're not going to be for everyone. And that's hard because it's human nature to want to be accepted. And again, it's, you've got to be so aware of your mindset and your thoughts that are happening around it and get clear on your why. Why are you doing this? Because again, you start scrolling on social media and it's easy to get caught up in thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be successful unless I'm pulling in, these 6-figure years, 10K plus months. It's like, well, maybe your why is because you want to take your family on a vacation every year.
Right.
Maybe that's all you want. You want a side hustle. You don't necessarily want a huge business. Really going into why? Why are you doing what you're doing? And let's face it, the motivation that you have at the beginning, that's going to fade. I know that's a really hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but this is where the discipline kicks in. And we'll get into that here in a minute.
Hey friend, can I give you permission today? Like for real, your own permission slip. Permission to get clear, to cut out the noise, mostly the noise that is going on around in your own mind, in your own head. It's just swirling. And you're asking yourself questions like, why am I stuck? Why am I frustrated? Why am I not making progress on my goals? I want to invite you to a free clarity call with me where we're going to dive in and we're going to identify what are the 3 main issues that are keeping you stuck. Number 2, what are the mindsets around those issues that are actually keeping you from solving for those issues? It's not our skill sets, it's our mindsets that keep us stuck and hold us back. And then number 3, identifying what are your next steps. We all have a next step and we have 100% responsibility for those next steps. Your only next step right now is to go to the show notes and book your free clarity call so that we can work through this. I'm believing in you and I cannot wait to see you on our clarity call. Reasons equal results. And I think very few people, when you ask them why they're doing what they're doing, can give you a solid, deep, inner intrinsic motivation on why they're doing what they're doing, because they haven't just taken the time, like you said, to sit with themselves and sit with those things. We're too busy looking at what other people are doing and comparing our day 1 to their day 100. And the things that we see them doing and the following that they have and all the strategies they have in place, these teams of people that are supporting them. Like if you're just getting started, that's not reality for you right now. You're going to have to work your way into that, but really getting clear on why you even want those things is super important, because then that's where the discipline can kind of come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as moms, and you mentioned this as Well, we're so used to being busy,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to learn that our time is one of our most valuable assets.
Yeah.
So, my next strategy that I always discuss with my clients is you have to set those daily non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Okay, once you know how much time can I
Mm-hmm.
devote to this, because you are going to have to stay disciplined. The motivation will fade. So this is where the discipline kicks in. This is where that why will get you through those hard days.
Yeah.
Really develop 1 to 3 daily non-negotiables.
Mm.
What are you going to do every single day to move the needle forward? Ideally, work up to 3. But if you can only start with one thing you're
Mm.
going to do every day to move your business forward, what is that one thing? Because let's face it, there were days when I would sit in the parking lot of my 9 to 5 job.
Mm.
I'm like, I just don't want to go in today.
Yeah.
But I had an obligation to show up for my patients, for the company, for the job I was hired to do. So
Right.
once you really realize, okay, you know what? I am going to treat this business like a business. And there are going to be days where it's hard to show up, where
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to do those things. But
Yeah.
having that discipline and keeping those promises to ourselves, because we have that greater purpose, that greater why,
Mm-hmm.
that discipline is going to keep us going.
Yeah. Yeah. On the days when it's hard. And the reality is it is. There's,
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, as an entrepreneur, you actually own a roller coaster, not a business.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
you're going up and then you're like, having fun going down. And then you have an upside down moment like the pandemic, where some businesses closed their doors, and those that had a growth mindset were willing to pivot and to keep their businesses. But that is the life of an entrepreneur, is like a roller coaster. You have those high moments and those low moments, and discipline is what helps you or empowers you to continue to show up on the days when you just don't feel like it. Because I'm sure, there's days there's things in my business that are not in my strengths, and I try to outsource as much as I can that are not in my strengths, but there's still some things that I need to do that I don't love doing.
Right.
And I know you feel the
Exactly.
same way.
Yes. And then throw in, the chaos of motherhood. You get a call from the school that your kid's sick,
Mhm.
or, there's so many things that are constantly coming up. It's hard. It is
Yeah.
not easy. And for me, like, one of the things too that gets me through is having people in my corner,
Yeah.
having communities that I'm a
Mhm.
part of, that I can show up and, text one of my business besties and go, you know what? Today's a really hard day. I
Yeah.
just need you to help me
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Because we need those people in our corner. We need those in front of us to learn
Mhm.
from. We need those beside us to link arms with and hold us up when we are falling down.
Yeah.
And then we need those behind us that have our back, that
Mhm.
we can help them then achieve the success that they desire too. Because it can feel so lonely as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. But the
Mhm.
reality is we're not alone, but we have to be willing to reach out and to
Mhm.
collaborate and to be in community and really shift from that mindset of scarcity that I'm the only one to,
Right.
wait a minute, like, our voices, we're way stronger together
Mhm.
when we
Yeah.
have conversations like this, when we link arms together and go, you know what? This
Yeah.
being a mom thing and running a business, it's hard, but we're
Mhm.
doing it.
Mhm.
And look at the example we're showing our kids. Look
Yeah.
at what we're showing them. We're not just saying, like, you know what, this is what you have to do to be successful. No, literally, like, we're showing it to them. And
Right.
it's so
Yeah.
cool. Like, that's so fulfilling to me when I see, like, my kids noticing, or they'll
Mhm.
say things and I'm like, you guys are paying attention. You really do.
They are. And I think they're learning how we deal with the stressful moments too. We're the model for how we're dealing with those, and being vulnerable and just saying today was a hard day.
Yeah.
Today I struggled with this, or today I didn't get the result that I worked hard for. That's life, and they need to learn those lessons as well. And having that community is so important. Like, I really don't know how people do business alone. And it's a choice, for any of you that are
Yes.
listening and you don't have your community, you're choosing to stay alone. There are so many free communities. There's podcasts like this where you can listen to and get free content and free mentorship. Some of my best mentorships and coaching came from podcasts that I was listening to, which is why I wanted to start my podcast. Because it is just such an easy way to put those earbuds in and listen and get that encouragement. Maybe you just need one word of encouragement to do what you need to do today. Maybe you need to know, I'm not alone. Oh my goodness, she feels just like I do. That's what these things are all about. And that's what your community is there for. So I highly encourage you, if you're finding yourself there, maybe you're just getting started, like, I don't even know where to look. There's literally communities for everything these days.
Yes. Yes.
Everywhere.
Your people are out there. You just have to be willing to be open to those opportunities.
Yeah. And if you don't find one, create one. I love what you said earlier, like those tables weren't for you. So you're just going to create your own. So if there's not a community that has the vibe and all the things that you think you need, then create it. Because there is someone out there who's thinking the same things you are, or that have the same problems and need solutions too. So yeah, you just have to get started with that.
Exactly. And for those people that get stuck in that scarcity mindset, like, look at other people doing what you want to do. That's proof. That is proof of what you can achieve. Link arms with them, get into their world and learn from them, because your superpower is your ability to bring yourself to the table. It is bringing your unique life experiences and just everything that you stand for to the table. So the fact that someone else is doing something similar, that's great. That is amazing. So keep doing it. Again, if you have that dream on your heart, go for it.
Yeah. I'm definitely collaboration over competition. There's room at the table for everyone. And just because someone's doing, there are really very few original ideas still out there.
Right.
Spoiler alert. But how you do your business and how you do your coaching and how you show up for your community is based on your personality, your experiences, and what you have to bring to the table. And everybody has that. And that's the beautiful thing that I love about this podcast, where there are people like you that I would never have met if it wasn't for this platform, right? And you're doing amazing work, and you have a community for people. And I think you just got to find that community or create that community. But you don't have to be a solopreneur. You really don't. Yeah. There's just too much out there for you. So you're 3 years into building your business. What would you say right now is working the best for you 3 years later? Like, what are some tried and true things you're doing right now at your level in your business to continue to grow the business?
So for me, it was saying those really hard words. I need help. Yeah. So I've had to start outsourcing and delegating a lot within my business and within my home too. We actually developed a family plan. I've got my business plan, but we've got a family plan that looks very similar. It's got our mission. It's got our values. It's got roles and responsibilities. Because what was happening is I was being a mom martyr. I wanted to do it all because again, society tells us oh, well, you have to be like that awesome PTO mom that's baking all the homemade stuff, and you have to be having your kids and all of these things. And I'm like, oh, that's not me. I'm not the crafty mom. And I'm okay with that. I don't want to be the crafty mom. There are women that excel in that. Slime to me, just it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's like the bane of my existence. I can't slime and glitter. And I love glitter, but glitter with my kids, not a good combination.
Not so much. Yeah.
So again, it's just really been asking for help and being intentional about how I'm spending my time. Because if I'm working 24/7, that defeats the purpose. I did not quit my 9 to 5 to work 24/7. So being intentional with those boundaries. Okay, when do I want to work? And what do I need to accomplish within that period of time? And if I'm struggling to achieve something, okay, where can I start to work smarter? What are some of those opportunities that I have to outsource certain tasks? And at first, it's a lot of trial and error. It's figuring out, okay, who's going to work out well, who's not, you have to try it again. Do it messy. Start small. Start by just recording yourself on Loom, doing some of the tasks that you do within your video, and then do a trial period with a VA. Hey, you know what? I'm doing this mundane task over and over and over. Can you help me out here? Or the beautiful thing is, we're living in this era where there's so much technology at our fingertips. There are so many cool automations. One of my favorite things is Zapier, to get two systems that don't talk to each other to sync. And just working smarter, taking advantage of technology, taking advantage of things like grocery delivery or grocery pickup to buy back your time. Because literally, yes, it may cost a little bit more upfront to get my groceries delivered. but I'm saving an hour and a half because
Right.
it would take me 15 minutes to get to the grocery store, an hour to do my shopping, 15
Yeah.
minutes to get home. And then
Yeah.
you still have to put the things away regardless. But still, I mean, right there, that's an
Or you can
hour.
outsource that to the kiddos.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Get your kids to help. They're
Right.
awesome at it.
Yeah.
They don't like to tell that they can do things. But I mean,
Yeah.
I have my kids pack their lunches even.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, why am I putting this whole burden on me
Mhm.
when I can teach them life skills, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we don't need to do it all. Just because we can doesn't mean that we have to, and we should be doing everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Someone today is getting freed up from packing their kids' lunches. I stopped that long time ago because I
Yes.
never loved doing it anyway.
Oh, I
And
hated
so
it.
as soon as I could figure out, teach them how to do it, then, I definitely delegated that out. But I think you bring up just such a valid point with delegation. Don't have an all or nothing mentality when it comes to this. Like you have to hire a full-time VA or you have to hire, all this huge team to run your business. It's some of those simple things like, the groceries. I mean, I remember I've been doing online grocery shopping before it was even really a thing. Like I remember the first time I heard about it. I mean, my son was, I don't know, probably 10 years old. He's 18 now. And I remember just thinking, this is the coolest thing ever. Yes. I can pull in the drive-through. They bring out cookies and balloons for my kids and they put my groceries in the car. Like what is happening here?
And I know, where was this when my kids were toddlers, right? Like when you ran out of diapers and you're like, yes, oh my gosh.
Yes, it's amazing. And I think we are so hard on ourselves and we start putting the mom guilt on ourselves when we start thinking about delegating out these things because we saw maybe what our moms did or we see what other moms are doing, right? And you just have to realize what's important to you, what's important to your family. I never forget sitting down with my kids and asking them these questions like, what's really important to you? Is it important to you that I have a home cooked meal on the table every single night and we sit around the table? Or is it just important that you have food on the table? Because I grew up with a mom who worked 9 to 5 and she had dinner on the table every night at 6. And it wasn't like a casserole. It was, meat and rice and veggies and like the whole thing. And so that was my standard. Right. And I still don't know how she did it because I'm not working 9 to 5 and I still don't, but I don't like to cook. So having those conversations with my kids and my husband is really freed up. They're like, no, we don't really care, Mom. Like, okay, so why am I putting this pressure on myself, right? To do all these things when they're like, I don't really care as long as my belly is full. I don't care who cooked it or how it got there. But to me, it was important that we got around the table. That was something I didn't want to lose sight of. So you just have to be open and have those conversations and realize, okay, do you want to spend your Saturdays cleaning the house or would you rather have that Saturday hanging out with your kids and delegate that out?
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's just giving yourself permission to even think about those things and then picking one and just going with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we're always like telling ourselves these stories and making assumptions, but yeah. Communicating with your kids, like, what do you really want? Like, do you like how I do this? Half the time they don't even care. They're just like, I mean, Mom, we just like hanging out with you. We don't need like a whole like crazy meal every single night. Yeah. Have these conversations with your kids because a lot of times we're setting ourselves up with these lofty expectations that don't even matter to our kids. Yeah. And it's exhausting.
Well, it is exhausting. And I think we see other moms that are doing it, but that might be something they enjoy doing. And that's why they're doing it. So you can't compare. Like if you don't like cooking and you're seeing this other one that are like, cutting their sandwiches in the shape of a dinosaur and writing them notes and all of these things, like I'm not shaming anybody who does that because if it gives you pure joy to do that, then you should do that. If it's important to your kids, then you should do that. But just check yourself before you wreck yourself. Like literally sit down and check yourself before you wreck yourself into doing all of these things that don't matter to anybody. You're just trying to keep up with what society is telling you you're supposed to do. That's where burnout comes in. And I'd love to talk with you a little bit about that. That's a question I ask every single one of my guests is, have you experienced burnout? And if you have, what did it feel like for you? How did it show itself? And then how did you kind of work your way out of it?
Yeah. So what I didn't realize was I was so burned out when I was working in that job, 40 hours a week. I mean, I would see upwards of 65 to 70 patients a week.
Wow.
And I would just come home exhausted. I was drained, but I didn't realize it until I took the time to stop.
Yeah.
until I finally took the time to pause. And looking back, it's blatantly obvious. Like I just had no energy. I was tired all the time.
Mm-hmm.
My kids would ask me to do things and I'm like, oh gosh, it felt like a chore.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like I was living. And I
Mm-hmm.
would just dread getting up and going into work. And then it's like, I just didn't feel like I was living life. But it
Right.
wasn't until I stopped.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I stopped and asked myself, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want my life to look like? How
Yeah.
do I want my kids to remember me?
Right.
Do I want them to remember the mom that they never saw, that was working all the time, that was stressed out and overwhelmed? Or do I want them to remember the mom that was like, hey, she was
Mm-hmm.
there to get us off to school. She was there when we got home. She did things with us. She
Mm-hmm.
was just present. She
Yeah.
was present and fully present
Yeah.
in the moment,
Yeah.
not just sitting there using her phone as a tool to just, escape reality, but finally living. So
Yeah.
for me, it was really taking the time to pause.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It was very uncomfortable for me at first because I realized that things weren't in alignment anymore. I
Yeah.
realized that what I worked so hard for
Mm-hmm.
wasn't serving me anymore. But I think
Yeah.
it's important that we take the time to stop and process those feelings,
Yeah.
to sit with those feelings. And they're going to feel a little uncomfortable at first, especially if you're like
Yeah.
me and things were so out of alignment. But I
Yeah.
am telling you, it is worth digging in and working through that discomfort, working through those fears and limiting beliefs that you have, because the life that you want to live, it is so possible. Again, you just have to have the courage to start. You have to have the courage to get really super raw, real, and vulnerable with yourself and your feelings. Have those hard conversations. Talk it over with someone that you trust, whether that be your spouse, a loved one, a friend, a family member, someone that you can trust, because
Yeah.
it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. But the other side, it is so worth it. It
It
is so,
is.
so worth it.
It is. If you're willing to feel anything, I believe you're willing to do anything. And sometimes feeling is feeling those icky feelings, right? And
Yeah.
feeling it's feeling the disappointment that maybe your business isn't where you want it to be. It's feeling the frustration because you've tried and maybe that idea didn't work. If you're willing to feel those things and still show up, right? Because there's days we feel those same things about being a mom, like
Yeah.
you just didn't hit it out of the park that day. I
Yes.
mean, you yelled at your kid that day, or like just give yourself so much grace in this process and be willing to slow down so that you can speed up. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, like slow down and actually figure out what's important to you, what your priorities are, so that you can be strategic about your time on where you need to be spending. We talked about that earlier. Like there's a lot of things you could be doing, but should you be doing those? So I really encourage all of you that are listening to just do maybe like a little time log for the next 3 days and write out all the things you're doing. Just like you do if you're trying to get your eating under control. Like you would write out everything because you're like, oh, I'm not eating that bad. But then when you look at the food log after 3 days, you're like, wow, I ate a lot of donuts, or I drink way too much coffee. No wonder I'm not getting good sleep at night. So it's just taking that personal inventory. So when you have that awareness, then you can look at it and say, okay, what needs to stay for this season and what needs to go? Because where you're going next, you may not be able to take all those things or those people with you. They're not ready to go where you're going, and you may have to leave them behind for now. And that's a really hard thing too, when you're transitioning and people just don't get it. Like you were talking about your mom. I mean, I still have conversations with some of my family members and they're like, you do what? What's a life coach? What do you mean you're coaching? Who are you coaching? Like it's just, I think that generation too, they're just not used to it. It's just kind of this novelty. Like, what does that even mean? What are you doing? When I know in my soul, this is what I was meant to do. So just, there's going to be some people that are just not going to be willing or ready or able to go to that next level with you. And that's okay. They were there for a season and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's just that awareness. Awareness is truly the first step to change.
Yeah.
And then once you have that awareness, that's when get into that messy action, because action creates momentum and momentum's what creates results. And don't be afraid to fail. Keep failing, because failure doesn't exist unless you flat out stop and say, I give up.
Yeah.
Just keep getting back up.
Yeah.
If you can learn from it, it wasn't a failure. It was just a lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. We either get the result we wanted or the lesson we needed. I firmly believe that. And you have to choose that thought, because on the days when things don't work, it's so easy as women to come back. Well, what's wrong with me? Why did I fail? And you're not a failure. What you just tried didn't work. That's really it. And you have to choose that perspective. And I think the more you can surround yourself with people who are solution oriented, who are positive thinkers, who see failure like you and I do, then you don't get into that trap in your own. But if you're by yourself, you're literally going to beat yourself up all day, every day. And then you're not going to take that action that you need. So tell me right now, as we kind of wrap up, what are you most excited about right now in your business?
Growth. We are starting to plan for 2024. And I don't know, I'm such a planner to begin with, but just seeing like something about the new year, just with all the possibilities, it's exciting. Yeah. So we're just growing the network and just trying to impact as many women as we can to change that narrative, because it's in linking arms with each other that we can start to change those generational beliefs that you have to choose. It's like, no, you don't. Let's change this narrative together for our kids, for each other, so that we can really step into our true power, our true purpose, and live the lives that we love.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, this has been such a great conversation. And where can people connect with you? What's the best place for them to connect with you? We'll put all that in the show notes, but just say it for them on the...
Sure. If you had a takeaway from this episode, I would love for you to pop on over to Instagram. My handle's at Amy Traugh, and just tell me what your biggest takeaway was, or say hello. I love knowing, like, when we have conversations like this, like, who is this impacting? We put our voices out there into the world, but come in, say hello. It's me in the DMs. I'm a real person. I swear, like, I will.
It's not a bot. I promise. We will talk to you. Yes.
Exactly. So that would be the best place, and everything's linked up from there.
That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up, one final thought that you would have if you had the opportunity to talk to all the mompreneurs of the world, which you kind of do here on the podcast, what was the one thing you would want them to know?
Just this is how I end every one of my podcast episodes. Stop dreaming and start taking messy action. You can do it. You can do it. I am no different than you. And if you have a dream on your heart, just start. One step at a time. Go for it. Do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. Do it to change the narrative.
Love that. Love that. All right, friends. Well, thank you again for tuning in to this week's podcast. Y'all know I'm believing in you always, and I will catch you on our next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.